But we are joined by workplace expert Paul Peters is with us this afternoon. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So listen, I saw the blurb for this article, and I was like, wait a second here. This really seems like a bad idea. Like in every way, shape, and form, is to basically blow out your boss on your LinkedIn profile. But somehow it's worked out for one girl, I assume.
Yeah,
I,
I'm
I
being an
don't.
employer. I can relate.
So here was my thought process. If I'm this person's potential employer, and I go back and I look at their LinkedIn page, and their LinkedIn page is basically just covered in them blowing out their old boss, ripping them apart left, right, and center. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to want to hire that person.
Correct. Exactly. And I think in this situation, she had actually quit from that job and had another position. So she was in a safe position to blast her boss. I
Right.
couldn't speak of the legalities after she did that, but from an employer standpoint, yeah, you'd be fired immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like well, not only that, but I mean, I guess it's just a bad look, isn't it?
It is, and it's a situation I think because when I looked into it in the situation where if you're being bullied or traumatized by your boss, I mean there is a normal protocol which is going through your HR department. I mean in this particular situation, which many people can relate, the HR department was ineffective in
Right.
protecting her and providing a safe environment. So she went to LinkedIn or Facebook. A lot of these folks will go there because of those situations. In my
Right.
situation, where as an employer, I've had to let people go, people will use the social media as a platform to blast people, and not necessarily what
Right.
they're blasting is true, but the people looking at
Right.
it don't necessarily, so that's the challenge. So
Well, and then you mentioned it. You're not, sometimes you're not surely sure of what the legality side of that is afterwards, right? Because now we know, like, people are being held responsible for what they're saying on social media, albeit not nearly enough, but it is happening.
correct. I've had in my situation as an employer, I've had to bring in HR experts to basically because of the, potential of toxicity in an employment environment, you as an employer have to make sure you're addressing that. And I actually brought in
Mm-hmm.
a culture expert to make sure that my employees felt like they were in a safe, comfortable environment. They had a voice. And I think in the working environment today, we've got to make sure that especially with the Gen Z population, they will just cut and run in a heartbeat. And so you've got to create an
Right.
environment where people have a voice, they can be heard. And I think that's very important. But if you're in a toxic environment, people are not going to tolerate that anymore. And they will go to social media in a heartbeat, which, like I said, presents the legality issues, but they don't care anymore. They're just like, hey, you're a nasty person. I'm gonna attack you.
Well, and of course that affects, that can affect your business in multiple ways, but the biggest way that affects your business is the ability to retain new talent. Because who's going to want to go to
Correct.
work for somebody like that, or whether, regardless of whether it's true or not, the ability to be able to recruit new talent and get the talent that you need. I mean, that's kind of a significant thing.
It is. What I've had to do in situations where I've had disgruntled employees leave and go to social media, part of it is the people go into your Google reviews, they're going to be leaving bad Google reviews. So an employer has to be very proactive with their marketing and making sure that they're working with their happy employees or customers that they can offset with good reviews. And I think that's something that most employers have to recognize. If you have an environment that's not toxic, and you're pouring into your staff, you're going to have more of a favorable clientele in regards to your staff being pleased, and that's something as an employer we have to make sure we're doing. I mean, bullying is just not acceptable in the employment area anymore.
So let me ask you, Paul: is it an employee's market or an employer's market right now?
Well, to be honest with you, I would say it's an employee's market right now because, especially with the Gen Z, they're looking for, work-life balance. And when coming off, like I have three of my kids are in the Gen Z population, and so they were so used to working in a remote environment. So it's almost like if you want to compare it to real estate, we are in a seller's market, and so we are in an employee's
Right.
market. They can pretty much pick and choose what they want. And so it kind of puts employers in a little vulnerable position, but if they want the good employees, they're going to learn they've got to treat their employees really well. They've got to take good care of them. That doesn't necessarily mean paying them high salaries. They've got to have a good culture where they're sensitive to the work-life balance.
So did it did it take a change in generation to make this happen? right? Because I
Well,
mean,
I think
Gen Xers don't work that way.
correct, exactly. I'm a baby boomer, and so part of it is it's almost like let's come together, let's understand how each process how we all think. But baby boomers were just used to clocking in, clocking out, doing what the boss told them to do. Gen Z population, millennials, Gen X, they're like, I don't think so. If this does not provide me fulfillment and value, I'm not going to stay.
Yeah, it's
And you've got to treat me respectfully as well.
yeah, they're asking for coming from a Gen Xer, okay? Like we've been disrespected I've been being disrespected in the workplace for 30 years now, okay? Like
Yeah,
it's something you just got used to, right? I mean, and it
yeah,
wasn't, we didn't even look at it like it was being disrespected. Like if you got told, hey, you made a mistake and now you got to fix the mistake. Like there was nothing personal there. It's you made a mistake. They didn't necessarily browbeat you or anything like that. But it does seem today that like some of these younger generations, if you say, hey, you've done this wrong or there's been a mistake made, boy, you can catch some serious flack for that.
you can. We can. I mean, we as bosses, managers, or owners like myself, we have to recognize we are now leading people, and we've got to be sensitive to a degree. I mean, we still have certain outcomes, certain expectations we have to meet the bottom line. But if we are leading them and treating them well, they're going to stay, and they're going to bring people that friends of theirs that are going to be good employees, and that's what we want because we want productivity. Productivity is no longer can be demanded of people, and it's kind of weird because it's kind of flip flop. The baby boomers and the way things used to be, just kind of do your job. But now it's like you can no longer threaten a staff and say you're going to get fired. You have to have expectations, but you got to treat them as a person. And I think that's what has been missing a lot. And Gen Zs are very sensitive to that. They'll jump in a heartbeat, or they won't even show up for the job. It's been the trend lately.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, the ghosting, right? I mean, that's basically what it is. They just
Correct.
they get to a point where they're not happy and they go, okay, you know what? I don't care because there's 55 or 60 other companies out here. They're going to hire me to do this the way I want to do it, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we do some crazy stuff. Like we do a staff meeting, so we had a couple people's birthdays. So if you've ever sang happy birthday on a Zoom, it's hilarious. There's no harmony, but you've got to make it fun. You've got to make it light. You've got to treat people in ways they want to be treated. That part of that is taking the time to get to know your staff.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is that for so long, people only expected that companies were required to do one thing. They were required to pay you well and provide you benefits. Basically, that was it. There wasn't necessarily a need for a quote unquote workplace culture because it was a job. It was a place that you were supposed to show up in the morning, work all day, and leave at night and go home to your family and forget about. Of course, that all changed obviously with the onset of computers and taking work
Correct.
home with you and whatnot. It's just a kind of a convoluted mess now, unfortunately, with all this intergenerational, right, or the multi-generational in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, people got used to doing work in their pajamas or doing work in your Starbucks. And there's been resistance of people coming back to the office mentality because one, it's in some cases it is toxic, especially if you have a boss who has that older mentality of, I'm the boss, you do what I say. Well, that's not going to apply. People have been conditioned for the last 3 years to live in that COVID environment where, hey, I can work in my pajamas. And it works. And I've learned, because I consulted a mentor, I said, I had problems. People weren't doing the 40 hours. It says, are they doing their job within the time they're doing that? Is the expectation met? So I had to shift in reverse our paradigm. Yeah, they are. So I'm not going to be so pressured about you getting in at 9 to 5, unless they're, you have to be there for a meeting or something like that. If my staff are being productive and getting what I need done from them, then I'm happy. So
right. Yeah, I guess if the job's getting done and the profit's getting turned,
Correct.
turned, what's the difference?
Exactly.
There you go.
So, we have to set the standard for what we're looking. You always have to have a high expectation standard, but there's many ways to get there. And part of that is but part of that is finding out what your employees need and what they want and how you can bring them to the standard and still meet with what they send. They want a sense of value. They want a sense of fulfillment. They want a sense that what they're doing matters. And so part of that is providing that for them and still accomplishing what you need to accomplish to get the work done.
There we go. My guest this afternoon, he is a workplace expert. Paul Peters is with us. And Paul, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. We certainly appreciate it. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next time.
I appreciate it, Mark. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You got to take care.
Bye bye.